Shadow Partners, and every weekday I bring to you a conversation with an expert or a thought leader in the realm of innovation for the built environment. Now, today's presentation is an encore replay of my conversation with Tommy Linstroth. He's the CEO of Green Badger. I talk with Tommy about automating compliance. Pretty interesting concept. If you have no idea what I mean, just listen in. And if you're listening and you think, hey, this is really interesting, I'd like to know more about this, then consider joining us in October in Atlanta for Shadow Summit. It will be our 7th annual Shadow Summit, and it's our own conference. It is purposefully cozy, purposefully intimate, a maximum of 200 tickets so that we can curate the audience, we can curate the topics, and we can do deep dives on conversations like this one with Tommy. If you want to know more about that, go to shadowsummit.com. There is a button up at the top of the page there at shadowsummit.com for you to apply to attend. Get your ticket fast because they go quickly. Only 200 maximum available, and many of those are already gone. So shadowsummit.com is the place to go. And if you say, hey, I'd like to be front and center, I would like to be more involved, there are sponsorship opportunities right now. I'd like to say thank you to Schneider Electric and NIBS, the National Institute for Building Sciences. They're both sponsors of Shadow Summit 2023. If you want to know more about that, just hit me up on LinkedIn and we can talk more about sponsoring Shadow Summit. But until then, enjoy this conversation with Tommy Linstroth, CEO of Green Badger. Hey, welcome back to Shadow Shorts. If we've never met before, my name is Jeff Echols. I am a senior advisor and the head of marketing at Shadow Partners. And my attempt in these Shadow Shorts is to bring to you just every day a short conversation about innovation in the built environment. What's going on? Why is it happening? How can we do more of it? Things like that. And so today I am joined by Tommy Linstroth. He is the founder and the CEO of Green Badger. And I thought that Tommy and I could talk. It's obviously related to their product, to their Green Badger product. But one of the things that I noticed as I was reviewing their materials, I was looking at their website, was this talk of the complexity of compliance. And if you don't know this, my background is architecture. I've spent 20 some odd years in A and AE firms. And I understand the submittals and the compliance. And when Tommy talks about the complexity, I say, yeah, it's over the course of my career, it got more and more complex. So first of all, Tommy, thank you for joining me today. And how has compliance changed, and what was the tipping point for you when you said, hey, enough is enough? This is getting really complicated. We need to do something about it.
Sure, Jeff, and thanks for having me. Just the word compliance, nobody has a good connotation when you say that.
This is
Nobody's
true.
like, fun, like, let's go out. What do you want to do this Friday night? Let's go out. Compliance, right? Like, it always means that if you're doing something, if you're not in compliance, right, something's bad. And in the built environment, you got enough to worry about, right? We have building code compliance, you've got OSHA compliance, you've got safety compliance, and now we focus on sustainability compliance. And that's just one more added level that the design team and the construction team need to be mindful of, because it is a requirement, whether it's an owner requirement, a contractual obligation, or a regulation. And like anything else with compliance, right, people don't just take your word for it. You've got to verify and prove that you are staying within the realm of whatever regulatory framework you're in. And that just means it's one more thing you've got to A, make sure you're doing, B, make sure you're doing correctly, and C, make sure that you're conveying what you're doing and that you're doing it correctly so you don't get in trouble. And again, that's, it typically isn't the funnest part of people's days.
That might be the understatement of the day. Yeah, I mean the documentation of everything, whether it's I would say at sort of the application level or the submittal level, or maybe on the timeline there, definitely more and more complicated. And as you said, you're focusing on sustainability and specifically on the construction side, right?
That is correct. Not that the design side is easy, but the construction side with
Mhm.
hundreds of subcontractors and thousands of
Right, right.
submittals and all that stuff. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's easy for things to slip through the cracks.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you developed Green Badger, obviously you're looking compliance in the face here. Did you develop it simply, probably not simply, but simply because it's like, hey, I need a better way, I need a better workflow, I need a better way to keep track of all of these things, or was there something bigger
No,
involved
that's
there?
that hit the nail on the head. I was doing it. I had been doing it from an ownership side when I worked in the development world, and then I moved into consulting and was, I like to liken it to TurboTax or to QuickBooks. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people that were tracking their, trying to file their taxes by collecting their W-2s, and all year long they're saving all of their receipts, and then they've got to figure out their itemized deductions or standardized, and then they've got to document and verify all of that. And they used to do that by hand and write
Hmm.
it down on your 1040, and mail it off to the IRS and hope you didn't screw up and come back and get audited. And with sustainability, it was the same way. We were tracking all these things in spreadsheets. We had binders full of site inspection reports, and it was like, my goodness, you track these things over the course of 2 or 3 years. And then I had 15 projects going on, and it was like, what? This is just insanity that I'm doing this in such a manual, time consuming way where it's so easy for me to make a mistake. And if you're collaborating on a spreadsheet, this was before Google Sheets where you could actually collaborate on something, right? So it's like, well, who changed it? What changed? There's no transparency into it. And so it was like, my goodness, for the complexity that's involved, there's got to be a better way. And there was not one. So instead we pivoted from consulting and said, look, if I can, this would be great for my 15 projects, but if we did this right, we could help 15,000 projects and really use technology to help everybody overcome this manual, labor intensive burden of green construction compliance.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I love that. Right? It's 15 versus 15,000. That really kind of shines a spotlight on what you're accomplishing now. So, what's the process of that? How do you develop? How did you develop the solution, and what is the solution? I guess.
Sure. Well, the solution is now we're a full comprehensive green construction workflow, but it started with a can of paint. And I would go to job sites when I was consulting and walk the site and literally pick up a can of paint and see, is it compliant? Is it got too much toxic stuff? And I was like, for the love of God, if the GCs could just literally scan the barcode and it would tell them if it's compliant or not, that would save me a trip to the job site at least, or when I was there, not running into any surprises. And so we built just a really basic prototype that built a database of products with their green attribute for paints and sealants and things like that. And it's like, okay, I can go to the site and I can verify this. Pretty cool. I was like, all right, what else is actually involved now? What else am I harping on these guys? Okay, product submittals. Would it be beneficial if I could see that submittal on my phone? Yeah. All right. They're taking all of these pictures, or they have a checklist. They're literally walking around the job site inspecting silt fence and erosion control measures. Could they just do that from their phone? Yeah, they could. And so eventually, piece together that you could really manage everything digitally with a lot more transparency, whether you're sitting at your desk in the office, whether you're in the job trailer, or whether you're in the job site. And so, from that basic prototype of a can of paint to a full green construction management platform, quickly evolved over the coming years.
Yeah, I love it. And so, who's using the product? Is it general contractors generally, or is it broader than that?
It's broader than that. It is primary general contractors. I'd say probably 90% of our users are general contractors.
Mhm.
But I used to be a consultant, and it was really built with that view. So we've got a lot of consultants that use it because it allows you to see all of your projects in one spot, updated in real time with accountability and transparency. So the alternative, again, if you're still doing it the old-fashioned way, which a lot of people are, it's like I've got 15 project folders. In each one of those, I probably got 5 or 6 spreadsheets, and I've got to see when they were updated and who updated and what changed, or I've got a nice dashboard that shows them all. So we're starting to see more architectural usage, as well as, being coming from the architecture world. A lot of the times, that construction administration still falls on you to oversee or work with the contractor. So we're finding the architects and consultants finding value, and we just actually launched a new, broader ESG platform for your more for environmental, social, and governance metrics, and we're finding that's even got some flavor for the owners who are tracking that, and they're looking at their office use, but they've to date a lot of times ignored the construction impacts of new
Mhm.
development projects. So now we provide them with one centralized platform that they can look at their entire real estate development portfolio and see what are the true impacts that we're having, and how can we report this as part of our annual reporting mechanisms.
Okay. So is the product designed, if you just joined us, we're talking about Green Badger. We started talking about the complexity of compliance and how compliance is everybody's favorite word. Um, and we've evolved from there to talking about Green Badger. It's the product that we're talking about, and automating or at least systematizing the idea of compliance. So when you're talking about the different dashboards and the different reports, et cetera, is it aimed at the jurisdictional level, or is it my internal systems that I'm working on, or is it specific to anything, or is that just something that I can specify in the dashboard somehow?
It started out built around a third-party green building framework called LEED, which is
Yeah.
the most widely established third-party green building rating system in the world. So at the end of the day, to get a LEED certification, which is required on most publicly funded and state-funded projects, as well as pretty much anything from a Fortune 500 company, require these on their facilities. So it's common in the marketplace, but it's a contractual obligation. So at the end of the day, our system, as I mentioned with TurboTax, like we package all of that up so it
Mhm.
can get submitted to the regulatory body, which in this case is the U.S. Green Building Council. It's in their formats, their templates, their calculators that
Got
they
it.
require. So you can literally hit export, send it to them, and then they take it to do their audits and their reviews from there.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And like you said, there are contractors and developers and designers starting to use it. Where do you see this going? Because it's, you're talking about lead, you're talking about the sustainability. Of course, there's all kinds of other, when we look at the broader scope of design and construction, do you have any plans to expand beyond the sustainability? I mean, maybe not called Green Badger, but um, but it seems like there are use cases for other types of compliance out there. Do you ever see? Well, first of all, do you see a need in those other areas, whether it's safety? I mean, you rattled off a lot at the beginning. Um, do you see a need in those areas, and do you have a desire to attack it in those areas?
I do see a need, and we are going to attack it. So, I mean, sustainability, we still got a lot of legwork. There's still a lot of other regulatory frameworks and rating systems to address. But really, I think our ESG platform is where we'll start to see some of that overlap. What we've seen is that
Mhm.
it gets siloed really easy, and a lot of times if you're talking sustainability, it's just about efficient energy efficiency and carbon, and not diversity and inclusion, not safety. And so you've got safety people report on safety, HR reports on diversity, sustainability reports on that, and it's all different systems. And what we're trying to do through our ESG platform is unite that and provide a common system that it doesn't matter if you're an HR manager or whatever, you're on the same dashboard in the same organization as
Mm.
your sustainability people, as your legal, as your IT, as your governance portion, and really providing a framework to account holistically, rather than in individual workflow silos.
Yeah, so you're almost just a total operations platform at that point.
At that point, yes.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Um, I know I mentioned automation at the beginning. What type of automation is it just the repetitive systems, or are you building AI into this somehow? Um, which, of course, a lot of people are, but what are we talking about in terms of automation?
Sure. So a lot of it comes from the workflow itself. So you mentioned submittals a couple times. On the lead side of
Mhm.
things, submittal review and providing correct submittal data is a huge part of it. And unfortunately, that's also that tends to be the most challenging part. And a lot of revise and resubmit or rejected submittals, or it's missing this, that, and the other thing. And then it goes back to the sub and it just delays everything. And then you still end up with incomplete information. So what we've done is built a robust product database that can eliminate that portion of the submittal process. So instead of having to go out and have the sub go to their vendors and manually compile all this information and send it through your submittal review process and then get deconstructed so you can record all of the lead specific information. All you got to do is pick, I'm using Armstrong Calla ceiling tile. Boom, it's done. All of that happens automatically. It provides you all of the product data. It provides you all of the lead attributes, all the sustainability attributes in the format it needs to be in. And then it again tallies it and is formatting everything into that final submittal package. So instead of taking that submittal, parsing it apart, typing it in a spreadsheet, saving each piece into separate folders, if it's all correct to begin with, I mean, even if it's a correct submittal with all that information, you would literally have to take it. Your ceiling tile submittal is going to have 600 pages, of which you need 10 from a lead side of things. So you got to pull those out. You got to read and determine what attribute, what recycled content does it have? I don't know. I got to go through 600 pages and find it. I've got to type it in a spreadsheet. I've got to save all that information so that at the end of the day I can submit it. So we eliminate that. So that's our biggest automation, is just instantaneous product verification and validation, and then really just automating that your submission to the U.S. Green Building Council, because it puts it into all of the forms and templates you need it to go into.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly useful to me. I remember being 20 something years old and in an office and having to, a long time before Lead came along, by the way, but having to pull all that information together on the specification side and sample side. So this sounds amazing to me. It sounds like a very valid problem and a great solution to the problem. If you want to know more about Green Badger, the URL is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen right now, getgreenbadger.com. And of course, you could reach out to Tommy on LinkedIn or just go through the website and connect with somebody over there at Green Badger. And if these kinds of conversations are interesting to you, first of all, we'll be back tomorrow with another of these shadow shorts, just short form conversations about one idea, one big idea every day. But if you would like to go deeper into these types of conversations, later in October, the 24th through 26th of October this year, in Atlanta, we will host Shadow Summit. It's the 7th annual Shadow Summit. And one of the things that sets this event apart from other conferences is, as one of my colleagues put it, we geek out on conversations like this. We have these types of conversations and we go really deep into them. They're not surface level. They're not broad stroke conversations. We really dig deep into very specific topics having to do with innovation in the built environment, problems, solutions, and innovation. And as our CEO, KP Reddy, put it, the Shadow Summit 2023 will be a Cliffs Notes version of everything that's happened this year in terms of innovation for the built environment, and a preview of what you would need to plan for and budget for 2024. So if any of that sounds like something that you need, go to shadowsummit.com. We're continually updating that website these days. We just did a walkthrough of the venues that we'll be using for Shadow Summit. We did that yesterday. If you joined me yesterday, I was live from one of those venues on the Georgia Tech campus there in Atlanta. So shadowsummit.com is where you can find more about that. But in the meantime, go to getgreenbadger.com, find out more about Green Badger, use it for your team. Tommy, thank you for this conversation. Appreciate it, and appreciate you joining me. A mobile edition for you from where you are. Appreciate the conversation today.
Thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. And thanks to everybody out there. We'll be back again tomorrow with another Shadow Short where we'll talk about another topic regarding innovation for the built environment.